Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Courtney King and today's short talk is going to be about the easiest job to get in tech, I think, for people who are moving into tech from a previous career or with work experience or a college degree. This is the final video of my 4-part series about the easiest jobs to get in tech. I've made my way through 3 others. If you haven't seen those, go watch them now. And we have moved into roles for people who are maybe a little bit into their career. They're coming from a different industry. They do have work experience and or they do have a degree. And the role that I want to talk about today is my favorite. It is called the Customer Success Manager. So what is a Customer Success Manager or a CSM? A CSM is someone who works at a tech company who babysits all of the highest paying customers. So essentially this person will have a portfolio of customers. Depending on the company, these could be all the customers at the company, or they could be only the highest paying ones. Typically it's the latter. And you have a portfolio of these customers that you look after. So the entry-level version of this role will still typically require a college degree, but it usually pays pretty well. Usually an entry-level CSM can make at least $60K, upwards towards $75. And that role is usually called a junior CSM or an associate CSM. Typically that person has a large amount of companies in their portfolio. So at least 50, maybe hundreds of these companies in their portfolio, but they are what's called low-touch CSMs. That means that they provide a very small amount of high-level customer service to all of these companies. Most of the companies in their portfolio, they will literally never talk to. They will literally never hear from them aside from like sending out automated emails about something specific. But in terms of like how much you're going to actually deal with each company, not that much. You're not really going to be building a lot of relationships. You're sort of just a resource that's there. If that company needs you for something, usually you're going to be passing them off to another team. Like, okay, thanks for telling me about that. Go talk to customer support. Have a nice day. So that's an entry-level CSM. And then from there is just a regular customer success manager. I think most CSMs probably have probably anywhere from 20 to 30 accounts in their portfolio. And this is called a high-touch CSM. So you are going to be doing a lot of relationship building here. You're going to get to know your customers. You're going to get to have multiple points of contact at a company. So it's not just one person at the company you're talking to. You may actually be talking to multiple teams. Depends greatly on the customer, depends greatly on your product. It depends on a lot of different things. From there are various senior versions of this role, but today I just want to focus on the entry-level version, an associate CSM, or just the regular CSM. So this is a good role for someone, like I said, who's coming in with work experience, especially if you're coming in with leadership experience. It can be a really good role for you. I came into tech and I already had work experience in hospitality and I had management experience in hospitality. And so I just started as a regular CSM. And so it can be good for someone who's coming in with qualifications of their own. Companies like to see that, especially if it involves some sort of customer service in the past. Companies like to see that. You have to be an excellent communicator for this role. You have to be comfortable on Zoom calls. You have to be comfortable doing presentations in front of all sorts of people, executive level people, right? If that's something that really freaks you out and scares you, you really don't like being put on the spot, then being a customer success manager is not for you. Sometimes you have to do training for the customers. So you have to be able to get on the phone with dozens of people and train them on how to use the product. It's important to understand that your customers are typically paying quite a lot of money for access to a customer success manager. So keeping them happy is super, super important. Your customers will typically be on a sort of engagement cadence with you. So maybe you have a standing phone call every month or every couple weeks, whatever the case may be. When you're getting a company onboarded to the product, getting them set up with everything, you might meet with them weekly. You might talk to them daily. It is a job that has a lot of variation. It varies quite a bit in pay. It varies quite a bit in responsibility. It varies quite a bit in scope and how big the companies are. I have worked as a CSM where I had just a handful of really large companies that I worked very closely with. That's my favorite kind of work to do as a CSM. Or like I said, on average, I think most have about 30. And so you're talking to your customers maybe once a month, but it's a job for someone that likes doing different things. If you don't like work that's very monotonous, being a CSM is a good choice. Your day, you could be meeting with customers over a technical issue. You could be talking to the marketing team about some internal projects they want you to work on. You could be logging all the notes that you have written from your calls last week. You could be creating a slide deck for a presentation that you're going to do for your customer next week. You could be doing trainings, product trainings for your own benefit or for your customer's benefit. There's lots of different things that go into the role. It makes it varied and very dynamic as well. So if you enjoy stuff like that, and also you enjoy customer service, maybe enjoy isn't the right word because like who enjoys customer service? But if it doesn't bother you, then yeah, it would be a really, really good fit. It's a higher level customer service. A lot of companies will call it white glove customer service. Again, these people are paying a lot of money for the customer service. So you definitely have to take the time to understand their needs and understand their problems in a real way. This is very different from the customer support role, which is what I talked about in my first video in this series. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it now. The customer support role is for folks who don't have a lot of work experience or maybe don't have a degree, and they are solving typically low-level technical questions. Like someone gets locked out of their account and they need to reset their password, or some new feature is not working right for them, right? They're solving low-level technical questions, and it's just like a turn and burn, right? There's a ticketing system. They respond to the ticket, solve the issue, move to the next one. There's no relationship building with the customer at all. They're just turning and burning. That's very different from a customer success role, which is heavy relationship building, heavy rapport building. You want to get to know the company and its goals, its specifications, its strengths, its weaknesses, its competitors, what it's doing to fend off those competitors. And then you use that information to create a plan for the account. That strategic account plan, that's a huge part of the role. And you're going to work to execute this plan over time, ideally. This plan is going to help the customer succeed on their goals, and it's going to help you as a company grow the account. That is upsell, right? Bring in the salesperson again for an upsell or an expansion of the account in some way. So there is there's not a sales component in that. Typically a CS role is not required to do sales, but they do work very closely with sales to identify opportunities for growth and expansion. That is part of the role. And also renewals, right? Typically, these companies are on annual contracts, 1-year contracts. So they got to sign that contract and pay again next year. And your biggest job is to make sure that they're happy enough to sign the contract again. That is going to be your number one metric that you're graded on. In many CS roles, it is the only quota that you have is your retention or churn rate. Churn is people leaving, customers leaving. That's called churn. And you want to minimize churn. That is why the customer success role exists, because they help to minimize churn. So all of that said, this may sound like a nightmare to you. You might be like, oh my God, I could never do something like that. It is like most roles in tech, a lot of Zoom meetings and Slack messages and emails, to be frank with you, right? And if that sounds like an absolute nightmare, if being customer facing and doing a lot of rapport building, basically schmoozing on the phone, if that sounds like a nightmare to you, this wouldn't be a good fit. Again, if you have stage fright and you hate the idea of having to give presentations, if you hate the idea of sort of being put on the spot in front of a group of VPs, that terrifies you, this would not be a good fit. But if all those things sound fine, if you're like, sure, I can fake it till I make it. I got the gift of gab. I can get on the phone and talk. I can return emails. To me, it's a super easy job for someone who's in the right place and has that kind of skill set. It can be a great fit for someone moving from any kind of industry. I just think it's super versatile. It's great for anyone with that personality type and who is naturally an organized person. If you are not naturally an organized person, if it's hard for you to keep up with meetings and deadlines and things like that, this wouldn't be a good role. If you hate customers and never want to speak to them, you need to go to the technical side so you never have to talk to them. This wouldn't be a good role. But this one is definitely my favorite, probably because it plays to my strengths. So what are the downsides of this role? The boundaries of your job can be really ambiguous. It's a wear many hats role. And so sometimes that means doing the job of like 4 people. If you've got a company that doesn't know what they're doing, it can be like a little hectic and a little draining in that way. You're like, wait, why am I doing graphic design today? Don't we have a marketing team? Why am I talking to this person about, sales? Like, where's my salesperson? Shouldn't they be on this call? So yes, it can be sort of, you have to be flexible intellectually in that way. And personality wise, you have to be flexible. Dealing with customers is draining. I feel like dealing with customers is always a con, if I'm honest. It's a huge part of a lot of jobs, but it can be really draining, especially if you've got a group of customers that are particularly high maintenance. That can definitely come up. Sometimes there are market forces that are at work that are going to hurt you on trying to manage churn retention. So if a lot of companies, like right now in tech, you see layoffs going on, there's a lot of instability financially, people are afraid, there's uncertainty. This can cause companies to cut their budgets. Sometimes that means getting rid of you as something that they pay for. And that can be stressful. You got renewal time coming up. You need this company to sign a contract and they don't plan on paying, right? They have not allotted the budget. Whether or not you gave them good experience or not, they're just like, we don't have this in a budget anymore. We're leaving. Well, that can definitely hurt you come your annual review time or your 6-month review time, whatever it is. And so sometimes things happen in this role. Oftentimes things happen in this role that are just outside of your control. Sometimes you get a customer that never wants to talk to you. You cannot get them on the phone. They do not respond to emails. You have no idea if they're using the product. You have no idea if they're happy with the product. You have no idea if they're going to sign their contract because they refuse to speak to you. Sometimes that happens and you can work as hard as you'd like and they just refuse to talk to you. And then at renewal time, you're in trouble. So yeah, it can be a role where there's things that are outside of your control. It's lots of resource management and people management, dealing with personalities. You're going to need the help of people from sales, from marketing, definitely from, the product team, all sorts of different personality types here that you have to manage. And sometimes you're waiting on other teams to give you resources or information. And the customer is white hot and they really need it now. And your other teams are just dragging their feet, acting like they have all day, all week, all month. And you have to push people, herd cats. That's what I would say. You have to be comfortable herding cats and being persistent with people like, hey, I need that today. It's been too long already. And so if that stuff feels like stuff you already do, then this would be a good fit. If that feels like a nightmare to you, then this wouldn't be a very good fit. So yeah, the customer success role is one of my favorites to suggest to people who already have work experience or have a degree, because again, it's very versatile and it's very communication driven and personality driven and really doesn't have a lot of quotas. Typically doesn't have a lot of quotas. There's that one big one, churn retention. You have to make sure you don't lose customers. But other than that, there's not a lot of quotas. It's a lot less pressure than being in sales. So that is the end of this 4-part series. If you have made it all the way through, thank you very much for watching. I hope that it provided value. If you haven't already liked or subscribed, please do so. Also, hit the bell icon. I post new content here every week and you don't want to miss that. I will have, as usual, another video coming out in just a couple days, so please look out for that. Other than that, thanks for being here, guys. I will see you in the next video.